Is this working? Is working? It is working. Okay,
Yay!
good. Welcome, welcome back, everybody. We had a false start, but that's okay. We're here. We're talking about metaphysics, and Petra was on the most amazing talk. Petra, keep going, keep going. Metaphysics, take it away, girl.
All right, good. Thank you. So I don't know where it dropped off, but the point is that every spiritual tradition has metaphysics, mysticism, and practice in it, right? And so this idea that we don't understand what metaphysics is, it is really, and then it's kind of, not only do we not understand it, but we think it's a little weird.
Yeah.
Like, it's a little weird.
Yeah.
Okay, there's nothing weird about the word metaphysics. I mean, as I said, it comes out of Aristotle, and it's a word that's used in any Western civ philosophy class, and it's basically the study of the nature of reality. It's the philosophical idea about the structure of reality, and so. And in a religious context, of course, that includes the idea of the divine, God, what's happening, and the idea of who we are in relationship to all of that, right? And so, I find it fascinating, and I think the challenge, of course, is that metaphysics is the underpinning of new thought, of a new progressive Christianity, of a new way of thinking about spirituality. Lots of people who think of themselves as spiritual but not religious. There's still a cloud hanging over that is a Christian point of view. Actually, I just had a conversation today with someone who considers themselves agnostic, maybe leaning kind of like a Christian, maybe, but not really sure. Lots of dogmatic Christian stuff doesn't really work for them. And yet what the comment was, well, I'm not a complete heretic. Well, I'm not a complete heretic either, but I don't subscribe to Christianity as like Christian, right? So what, are the Buddhists heretics? No, that's such an old umbrella, but it's an unconscious bias that we have. We live in a Judeo-Christian culture, and there's such an unconscious bias. And even people who study metaphysics can have a weird relationship with the term metaphysics because it's kind of woo-woo, and then of course, lots of things fall then under the rubric of what the media has pointed out. Oh, that's metaphysics. Oh, that's New Age. Oh, that's that weird stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And it's one way that people who aren't following a world religion, an identifiable world religion, it's one of the ways in which they identify themselves. Well, I study metaphysics. And it's actually the largest umbrella under which new thought falls, under which science mind falls, right? And it's it's actually an ancient word. And so the whole weirdness around it, I find really fascinating. So metaphysics, and actually, interestingly enough, having another conversation in another context around the word, somebody was saying to me, I don't understand. We use the word metadata in technology, in IT. We use the word metadata, data that is beyond the data that we have. It's like kind of in the background. It's like, and metaphysics means exactly the same thing. Why is metadata okay, but metaphysics not?
Yeah.
And I thought, well, there's a good way of kind of thinking about that term and wondering what's the deal there. I had to turn my phone off. So, because I can hear it in the background, it's like exploding. I forgot to turn it off. I'm sorry. So what about you guys? What do you think?
Yeah, we'll talk when you turn that off. I that is so spot on. But Peter made some really great points that there is metaphysics present in Christianity and Hinduism. So why don't we talk about that? Like, what are the examples of metaphysics in those, backgrounds? That way people can really get a full understanding of what we're talking about. So what are some examples of metaphysics in Christianity, for example?
The structure of the Trinity.
There it is.
Right? That is a belief about the nature of reality and the nature of God. That is a philosophical or theological idea that there is this Trinity, that there is the creator, there is that which is created, there is the incarnated Son, and then there's the Holy Spirit that is sort of the way that all that happens, right? Also in Christianity, which doesn't get talked about a whole lot, is that actually beyond the Trinity is the notion of the Godhead, which is actually the infinite one, out of which the Trinity falls. And anytime there's a conversation around any of that that is not devotional, it's not a devotional conversation or a practice conversation, but is a conversation about, how does that all work? What does that mean? How are they related to each other? All of that, that's metaphysics.
Yeah.
Right? In Hinduism, it's the same thing. Hinduism, they talk about Hinduism being polytheistic, which is kind of a simplistic understanding, right? In Hinduism, you have the unnamed, unknown God. Same thing in the Roman pantheon. You had the unknown, unnamed God. And then all the images of these gods and goddesses were simply trying to get a hold of different aspects of something that's infinite. So in the in its most straightforward simplistic form, Hinduism is Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, the creator, the preserver, and the destroyer, right? And so there's that, again, that's the conversation about the nature of reality. How does it how does it get started? What keeps it going, and why is there this cycle of life and death and change? Like, so how does that all work? That's a metaphysical conversation, right? And everybody has that conversation. So those would be like really straightforward examples. It gets weird when the question is, well, do you believe in that? Mm. Now that's turned a philosophical conversation into a conversation about faith. And that's where it then gets moved out of the conversation of metaphysics.
Right.
Metaphysics really takes that as an actual conversation. What do I think about that? Does it make sense to me? Do I think that jives with my experience of reality, my experience of science, my understanding of science, my philosophical readings, my religious experience, my spiritual, like I can actually engage in a conversation with it, as opposed to immediately going to the question, do I believe it? Do I buy into it? That turns that metaphysical conversation into a question of faith.
Yeah, that's such a powerful point, because like all my life in Christianity, I never understood the Trinity. I couldn't wrap my head around the Trinity and how it was one. It never made sense to me, ever, and no one could ever explain it to me. And then when I discovered you guys, when I discovered Science of Mind and CSLDallas, I was like, why does everything here make sense? Why does everything make sense? And it's still it's shown in a way, it's presented in a way that I get exactly what's happening. And I know it to be truth, to be the fact, to be how the universe works. How is that? So why does that work for the Holy Trinity, work for some people? The faith conversation is so important because they just buy into it immediately and they just know that to be the truth. And yet for some, there was a huge disconnect for me. Like, where does that come from then?
Well, so I can't speak for everybody, obviously, right?
Yeah.
Right. So how we might look at that is, there's almost no spiritual tradition that doesn't have a Trinity of some sort. Even the science mind, we have spirit, soul, and body. Hinduism has Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, right? The Christian tradition has the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, or the Holy Spirit. Because the reality of it is that the nature of the infinite is so big that one idea doesn't capture all of the infinite nature of reality. So you have to talk about created reality, right? The incarnation, the Son, Shiva talks a lot about that the cycle of life and death, birth, seasons, all of those kinds of things, right? And then you have to talk about, well, how did it get here? How does that work? So you immediately have to talk about beginnings, or the fact that it's always beginning, right? In some cases, in the Christian tradition, there's a beginning, whereas in metaphysics, from the science of mind point of view, beginning is always happening. Things are always beginning, because there's a causal reality that's forever
Right.
infinitely beginning, right? And then there's like, well, how does intention, how does creator become creation? Well, you have to have a link in there. You have to have a process, a way, a conversation about how does that work, and how does something that gets begun, well, how does it maintain and sustain itself until it's then in the process of recreation? And so all of that is part of the infinite whole. So you actually have to find different ways of talking about the different aspects. I think sometimes the challenge for me personally, as I've observed and thought about it myself, sometimes the challenge of the Trinity is that it becomes a faith factor that these are three separate things that are somehow one, which is a little bit like saying my physicality is separate from my emotional state, which is separate from my mental state, as if I could like take my emotional body and like stand it over here and say, because I can talk about it, I can engage with it, I can do, therapy around it, I can run and feel better, right? It's as if it's separate, but to actually imagine that I could take my emotional state, and the same thing, people have a hard time, well, how could I take my body and stand it over here and still be me? Right? Because we understand that we have bodies. We aren't our physical selves. We're actually so much more than that. And so it's in the science of mind, of course, what we recognize is these are all aspects of the whole. They're ways in which we talk about the nature of reality, and the way that it's just so amazingly and infinite that to say one thing about it leaves out all this other stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it's the idea that they are discretely separate things that then, well, it didn't make sense for me personally. It does make sense for me that it's describing certain aspects of the whole, not that different than, we would loosely equate the Father with spirit, the Son with body, which is the creation, the incarnation of life and the universe and the infinite in the physical universe as the physical universe, but so much more. And then the Holy Spirit as the soul and law, the process, the creative medium, all of that, right? I mean, so, and they don't, it's not exactly the same, obviously, but it's similar. Yeah. And Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, kind of line up the same way loosely.
Yeah.
Because everybody's trying to get a hold of this like giant thing. It's infinite. And the minute, of course, you try to say anything about the infinite reality, you've left out a whole boatload of the infinite.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's what I think. I think it's the requirement to make them separate that becomes then something you simply believe, and you can either believe it or you can't believe it.
Yeah.
I don't know if
that's exactly it. That you literally like that either you can believe it or you just can't believe it. There has to be another path. I had to find another path to see what we were talking about, to what is the nature of reality, what is metaphysics. So I mean, Shakera,
what do you think about all this, Shakera?
Shakera, what do you think about all of this?
I'm totally intrigued. I'm totally intrigued because what really stands out to me is that there's a series of questions here that if you want to probe deeper into, like you said, Petra, it becomes a totally different conversation. And I think that's where I fell out of some of the Christian experience in the beginning, was I had other questions that nobody else could answer.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm like, wow, I never even thought of it like that.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I wanted to go and find these answers and this identification of myself, this whole experience of reflecting the divine in my own experience. If that story didn't make sense to me and it didn't look like my life, then it was like, yeah, no. And so I'm thinking about that from, before getting to science of mind and getting to understand, the spirit, the soul, and the body, and knowing that the soul has the feminine aspect to it, and then how you just connected that to the Trinity and Christianity. I was always wondering, where's the woman at? There's a father, there's a
Yeah.
child, where's the woman? And so when I started dealing with African spirituality, you always had that masculine and feminine entity and then creation. And so that's consistently practiced in different ways through African spirituality. But that's one of those main questions that took me there. And so I'm totally intrigued by the way that you broke that down.
Yeah. I also love that she said it's all creation, the beginning. Creation is always happening. It's always beginning, always beginning. It's not the beginning.
Right.
That was
Right.
that
Well,
like when, that really kind of blew my mind.
Okay, and so let's also acknowledge the first time that was written down. It's not that the Father is begotten the only Son, but that the Father is forever begetting the only Son in creation. The first person who wrote that down, documented that we know of, Meister Eckhart.
Really?
A 14th century Christian mystic who was, of course, considered a heretic. Because he understood that creation is constantly going on. The Father is forever begetting the only begotten Son, and it's begetting it through all of creation.
Yeah.
And because we understand the nature of reality is that there has to be a causal impulse. And that causal impulse is forever moving. There's forever new causal impulses, and it's forever supporting its own creation, right? And then we're recreating that. And so, yeah, I mean, and that's why metaphysics and mysticism are in all traditions. The question is always the cultural language or the exo practice that has grown up around it from the culture and the way in which it's talked about, right? And so, I mean, there's a wonderful statement, I'm not exactly sure who said it, that said our understanding of God grows as our understanding of human beings grow, right? And so as we have learned more and more and more about life and ourselves, right, we don't need as much of an anthropomorphized deity, because our understanding about ourselves is growing and our understanding about reality is growing, right? You throw in quantum physics and the way that changes our understanding of the nature of reality. And so we can see that the growth of human consciousness invites a broader, deeper, fuller, richer experience. So in indigenous culture, in indigenous spiritualities, in the ancient spiritualities, right, all these aspects of the infinite nature of reality were all cloaked in anthropomorphic forms, because it was recognizable, it was relatable, it was right. And because we were so embedded inside the mythological experience of the sacred, and so we told stories. That's how we understood the sacred. And you have to tell a story, you need characters, and you need right, and you know, and you have to start, and then you get a hold of it. Oh, there's that feminine quality, and there's that, right? And then, but the problem is that then they become codified as if somehow like that's the way it is. And metaphysics today, what I think is so cool about metaphysics today is that the question really is, what's the truth that seems to be present in so many of these traditions that are trying to get a hold of it underneath the cultural or time period box or sensibility, right? And for some people, some of those sensibilities really help us get a hold of something, but it helps us get a hold of it as opposed to becoming, you must believe in it this way. If you don't believe in it this way, then there's a problem and you're wrong. Right. But things start to, like, sometimes it's hard to get a hold of the idea of the infinite nature of reality. Like, what does that mean? Okay. So then we reach for nature metaphors, or we reach for an idea of a deity that, is all knowing, and right, we're trying to we're trying to feel it. We're trying to make it real to us instead of just the nature of reality.
Right.
Like, okay, right, whatever, right? And so, but we begin, in the whole Buddhist saying, right? Remember that the finger pointing at the moon isn't the moon, and don't get locked on point looking at the finger, look at where the finger's pointing. It's pointing at the moon. And what we do is we get stuck here.
Yeah.
Right. We get stuck in the metaphor or the description or or a cultural context or a way in which then that was codified into a practice. You have to practice this way, you have to wear the little hat and you have to do the thing, and you can, the women and the men and the blah, 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 blah. Right. But so much of that is then the culture surrounding that particular time when that particular way of thinking about it was emerging and being practiced, and then of course it becomes codified, and then we have problems.
Yeah.
So metaphysics seeks to not be caught in that stuff, in the exo practice, right? Which is, I think, then why for many people it's frightening, or it's not really faith, because it's actually not interested in. It's not even poking holes in a practice. It's just not interested. Because you could study metaphysics and you can kneel on your prayer rug and kneel to Mecca 5 times a day, because that's the practice that serves, that you culturally are familiar with, or that speaks to your soul, or that whatever. I mean, there's something about that. Or you go take forest baths and take walks in nature because that helps you have this experience of the infinite, right? So the practices become less, it's not that they're less important, but they're more individuated out of the individual's experience of their exploration of the nature of reality, right? And I think that's sometimes why it's frightening, and why it's also then, no, we can't really we can't have that conversation. So it's either trivialized or it's made wrong because we're not focusing on belief or practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's dead on. I feel like through metaphysics, I've discovered the why. The why of what I do. So practically speaking, like, it's not just like studying it, it's also like, it's a great thing about Science of Mind is that we believe you can actually use it. Uh-huh. You can't just like, you can of course just study it and look at it and learn about it and theorize and have, but you can actually use it in your life. And that's what I learned metaphysics, how to use it, actually practically use it every day in all situations. And 2, I've discovered the why. That way, when I do something, I'm not doing it by rote.
Right, because somebody told you to do it.
Exactly right. It's not about that anymore. Suddenly, there's meaning, there's power there, there's, and things actually start moving. Energy starts moving, and my life starts moving, because I've discovered the why of why I do what I do, and not just like what I'm doing.
Right.
Yeah, I think that Science of Mind provides that too, because when you know that why, it's like applying it to anything. And so I think that I've heard you say this, Petra, quite a few times, that Science of Mind should make you a better whatever you are, right? And I really feel like it's done that for me. And so that's why I'm always like, look, this stuff, once you understand how these things work and then you apply it to wherever you are in your life, it just enhances that experience. Because now you're not really just doing it blindsided. You're not just looking through the lenses of the rose-colored glasses. You're not just taking things upon first statement, but you really, really know it. And I think that's what's stressed in Science of Mind too, is that absolute knowing, that conviction. And
yes, right. And you have to critically think about it and then answer the questions for yourself, or then say, okay, I'm going to pretend that I think this is true. Mm-hmm. I'm going to just entertain the possibility. What would that mean? What would that be like? How would I practice it? How would that change my life? Right. You get to play with all of that. And then Shakera, exactly as you said, right? Then we start to embody it ourselves in the way that works for us. And we have people who, practicing Science of Mind should make you a better Christian or a better Buddhist or a better whatever, atheist, agnostic. I guess you'd have to be agnostic. I don't think you could be an atheist, because we don't believe in a theist. We don't believe in a deity anyway either. So I suppose we would all be considered atheists. And for some people, then they just don't want any of those trappings.
Yeah.
Right. Or there are exo practices from different spiritualities that really serve. And this is the other, I think, really, this is the unfortunate thing, is that then it gets denigrated as that sort of cafeteria spirituality. which I've heard more often than I care to count. Oh, it's like cafeteria spirituality. You only do what you feel like doing. Oh yeah, try to practice it for just 1 week. Go ahead. Try take responsibility for every thought, every feeling, every reaction. Take responsibility for the fact that you understand you're co-creating your life. Take responsibility for how you're showing up as God, as you. Go ahead, do it for 1 week, and you tell me how easy it is.
Yeah.
And of course we do, right? We find those practices not because it's a cafeteria, but because we actually recognize that different people express and experience life differently, right? I mean, it's learning theory, straight learning theory, audio, visual, kinesthetic, right? We all have thinking styles. Some of us are more intellectual. Some of us are more relational. Some of us love to think about abstract ideas. Some of us are very concretized, and why should it be exactly the same for everybody? I mean, it's crazy. And so some people want to sit in front of an altar and have a statue of Jesus or a guru, and they want to meditate. And other people, they want to go out in the world and they want to, speak for marginalized people because they see those marginalized people are God too, right? So why should one way of practicing spirituality be better than another?
Yeah.
That's the place where that's why it irks me no end when people say, oh, either it's that cafeteria spirituality or it's that easy, it's that easy, do whatever you think, do whatever you want. No, it's not do whatever you want. It's do what your soul tells you to do, and make sure you're not harming anybody in the meantime.
Right.
How to express the divine as you to the best of your ability. Does that mean go rape and pillage? Oh, you think the divine does that? Thinking no, thinking it doesn't. You really want to be in alignment with the divine. You want to be love. When you really want to just scream at somebody, or you want to stand at the street corner, pull your gun out, shoot them because they didn't stop at the stoplight. Really? Let's live it. Try, So yeah, have no patience for those kinds of critiques.
Yeah.
Because metaphysics, if we're really going to learn it and live it, there is not one damn thing easy about it. True, right? True.
It's true.
And the most annoying thing is once you know, you can't unknow. It's so annoying. And that's why they say ignorance is bliss. Truly, it's bliss. It's bliss not to know that I'm responsible for everything, and that really it does make a difference how I show up, and that actually my job is to show up as love the best I can, and in alignment with the truth of my being. And sometimes that's really scary. That's really hard. And what I just as soon do is have a temper tantrum and then have somebody tell me, do this and you'll be fine. Right? It's so much easier.
Yeah. Have you ever had someone discover science of mind and they just weren't ready for it and had to run away from it, and then later on come back to it and be like, it started to make sense?
Well, I don't always assume that people are running away because they're afraid of it. Sometimes it's just not a path for them.
Right.
It doesn't speak to them, and that's fine. I mean, we're not the only path by any means. There's lots of paths, and there's lots of paths that work really beautifully for people. We're a path for the people who are looking for this kind of a path.
Yeah.
So don't necessarily assume they're running away because they're afraid. But I do have, and unfortunately, because this is where the whole idea of cafeteria spirituality does come into play, is that we are consumers. We've learned to be consumers. And so we do tend to go for the latest fad. We do tend, and we're constantly rating it, right? Oh, this is boring now. I'm going to go down the street. Oh, I heard there was a new teacher down the street, or a new music, or new this, or new that, or did you hear so-and-so, blah, blah, right? And so we're consuming, and we consume it until we feel like we've consumed all there is, and then we go down to the next thing and we consume it, which is not practicing, right? So we do see some of that, and I don't know that they're not ready for it. I have had one particular community member. We would see her for a year and a half, maybe 2 at the most. She would take a class or 2. And then we wouldn't see her again. And then 4 years later, all of a sudden there she'd be again. She'd be there for a while, take a class or 2, sort of, come to Sundays, and then she'd disappear. And I'd be like, well, where is she? Well, And then we would tap in, everything okay? Are you okay? Oh yeah, okay. Okay. And the third go around on this, and she disappeared again. And I, I called her, and it was not just a pastoral, are you okay? Do you need anything? Everything. It was really okay. So tell me about this. I've now watched this over 10 years. I've watched this, and we had by that time built a decent enough relationship that she was able to say to me, so Petra, I can only take so much growth at once. I do what I come and I get as much as I get, and then I have to go away and I have to process it.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means. She's afraid of it. I don't know, but that she was so articulate about that. And we talked about it for quite a while. And that I have seen that. I mean, the amount of responsibility that's required to really step up to the plate in a new thought metaphysical way of understanding life is daunting. It is seriously daunting. And, that's the good news and the bad news. I co-create my reality, which means I co-created my reality.
Yeah,
bullshit.
Exactly. I know.
Now, am I to blame? No, not at all. I was trained as a child. I have the race consciousness, the collective unconscious, whatever you want to call it, all the stuff that humanity has believed over time and that has been, I've just absorbed by osmosis simply by having been born and raised in my family and my culture and my situation and all of those things. I'm not to blame at all, but now I do have to explore, and I have to examine, and I have to unlearn, and I have to do all that work. And I have to realize that is what is manifesting, and to take that kind of deep responsibility without shame or blame, which is a profoundly grown-up thing to do, without shame or blame. That's, some people we can take so much of it, and then it's challenging. I do think people sometimes need to go away. They need to process it. They need to be with it. And the truth is, other times I think people get a leg up. They get just enough of sensing that they matter, that they belong, that their life means something, that their own inner urge or way of being in the world is worthwhile. And then they just go do that.
Yeah.
And they've gotten what they need, right? What I think the reason for being part of it for a long term is the ongoing support we get for the deeper and deeper practice, for the creating lives that are meaningful to us, and then ultimately for the practice of the experience of oneness. Yeah. And that just doesn't come overnight. And we want it to move off the meditation cushion and into our daily lives. So can we walk around in our lives knowing that we belong and that we're one with even those people that we don't like, or even that situation that we think is terrible? And yes, there are things we can do about it, and we should be doing about it. Yeah. But it's all of that is very, I think that's what a community is for, right? We walk together, we hold each other's hand. Some people are a couple steps ahead, other people are a couple steps behind, and we hold our hand out. And some of us are just walking side by side, going, wow, oh yeah, I'm having that, oh yeah, okay, hold on tight, here we go. Yeah. Don't let go, it'll be all right.
Oh, that's so beautifully put. I just love that. Oh my God, I just love that so much. Yeah, exactly. We're just a community walking together, just holding on tight to each other.
Right.
Wow.
Some of us like to talk about it, and some of us like to go do things about it, and some of us like to be in programs around it, and some of us like to study it, and some of us like to go out in the world with it. And, and yet we have a touchstone, not only of the philosophy, but of the community that we can keep getting refed, refilled, recentered. And for some people, then being the container that the community is what they're called to do.
Right.
So that when people come, there's actually something happening, and there is a place, right? And a community. Some people are called to that.
Yeah.
Which is always really cool.
Shakera, when you first discovered, once we really understood what was happening, once we understood the nature of reality, like I would love to know your reaction to it when it was like, oh shit, I am actually co-creating my life. Everything happening is an outpicturing of my beliefs, and all this fun stuff happening up here. This is all an out. It's like when you discovered that, and it hit you. Like, what was your reaction? And then I'll tell you my reaction. But I want to know what your reaction was.
Ooh, so my reaction to that happened well before coming to CSLDallas and
Oh,
Science of Mind, because I started with self-mastery work. I cried for 10 weeks straight. Kidding. I cried every day for 10 weeks. Ask Lewis.
oh my
And it was like a big slap in the face. Like Petra talks about the universal 2x4. Yeah, I probably had a couple of bricks added to my thing. There was a lot of things to accept, Oscar, a lot of things to recognize that had gotten a certain way because of how life was just working out for me. And then when I got to CSLDallas through going to the classes, I mean, that's a long jump, just being honest. There's so many different things in between that.
Yeah.
But then when I got into this process called Inward Journey, and I won't go too deep into it, there was a real deep search. And what I was doing in this process was digging this deep well, this one deep well, really trying to get down to the center of the thing itself within me, right? And so it took a lot of acceptance. It took a lot of weeding it out. It took a lot of coming clean and being honest with myself. It took a lot of all this stuff that if you don't have the support for, let me tell you, honey, it is not fun and it's not easy to stay on the path. And so I had all the ego stuff come up like, oh no, I don't want your life to change. That whole protective identity within myself that said, you know, no, the life has been working this way and we're going to keep it working this way. When I went to dismantle that, all that stuff came up. And so the support system around why it's okay to release those walls, why it's okay to release those boundaries or set the appropriate boundaries in a healthy way, all of that stuff. I can't even get it. It's a full range of emotions. If you could think of one of those like balls of rubber bands and all the different colors.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh, we had the same reaction, girl. I'm telling you, I went through it. I mean, I really went through it. I was just like, it wasn't just so much of my mind being blown. It was just like me just screaming yes the whole time. Like, duh, yes, duh, of course. And then I remember just reading Science of Mind, that, you know, the textbook. I read like it the whole way in 1 week. I literally could not put it down. I just kept reading it. I couldn't stop reading. And I just kept saying yes the whole time. I understood everything it was saying. I just kept saying yes, duh, oh my God, what the hell? How are they putting this into words? It was just insanity to me. But Petra just hit the nail on the head for this idea, this misconception that it's like woo-woo or that it's easy or we just do whatever we want and it's just like free love. It's like, girl, if you just sit with it. Like, I love that challenge. I love the gauntlet that Petra threw down. Spend a week with it. Mm-hmm. Take a week. Take a week with it and live it. Be it. Try it. See what happens. See what comes up. And what's great though is like, I actually found it so liberating. I thought I would just be scared shitless, and I was for the first couple of days playing with it. But then it's like, wait a minute. If I'm actually co-creating, what do I want? It's no longer like, I don't want to be this, and I'm sick of this part of myself, and I don't want to be that. Then eventually you start shifting. You go, wait a minute. It's not what I don't want. It's not what I was. What do I want? Who do I want to be? Who am I? That's when the fun start happens, and you get to really dive in and do the really heavy work. But it's hard, but it's so exciting. It's unlike anything else because you actually get to see it happen.
Right.
You get to see it actually happen in front of you, and your life is changing all around you. And it's like, well, God, I wish I found it sooner. That's what I keep saying. Is I just wish I found CSLDallas a little bit sooner. Because my God, I would have spared myself so much other pain and bullshit before. Oh God.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, and that's the thing, right? I think that Science of Mind and New Thought is fundamentally a liberation theology. It is about liberating the soul and the spirit that we are, which is necessary for the universe. And so many people are looking for their purpose. Your purpose is to be the best you came here to be. And that really does mean that. That's not an acquisitional best you. That's not how many things can I acquire and show off how fabulous I am, or you can have stuff. Sure, you can have stuff if that is necessary for you to express yourself, of course. And yeah, and we have been habituated recently in the, I don't know, the last 20, 30, 50 years, maybe even longer, with the advent of the assembly line. We have been habituated to be cogs in the wheel of the economic engine.
Yeah.
And we've been habituated to get work and make money, which really has nothing to do with making a life. But we're here to live. We're here to make a life, not to make a living. Of course we need to make a living. Of course we need to have money and, and figure out how we're going to manage the kind of life that we want to have, of course, but as a means to an end, as a tool, not as the end result. The point is to make a life. And what kind of a life do we want to have? What are we here to contribute? What do we believe that we ourselves, our lives can contribute? And it doesn't have to be saving the planet or saving the world, or right now in the last year, I've spent a lot of time realizing that my life was about contributing to my brand new granddaughter.
Yeah. And
so Karen and I have given her a year of stability, and that was a part of what my life was about. And that was and to do that with as much love and care and recognition that she's her own being, and she too is an individualized expression. And all of my spirituality brought to bear on this then expression of that. Like, we're not here to have a career that somehow is our passion, which is now going to be the thing, right? We might have that, but that's a season. And then we might do something else. Or we might do 2 or 3 things that it's, our purpose isn't a career. Our purpose is our lives. And our lives include our relationship with ourselves, our relationship with other people, our relationship with the natural world, the contribution that we have to make, our gift, whatever it is. Maybe it's just the fact that, I know how to be steady in a time of crisis, or I have a particular gift with understanding how to work with numbers for a financial thing, or I have a particular artistic gift, or I just have a particular gift. One of my particular gifts is I'm a workhorse. I just know how to keep going. I don't have a lot of drama. I'm not the kind of person who, gets to the point where I just can't get out of bed. I wish sometimes I were. It would be really great, but I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't usually get, I can get certainly upset, but I know how to keep my shoulder to the wheel. That's a gift that I have. And I give that gift to a lot of people, and I give that gift to organizations. Is that like some save the world gift? No, but it's my gift. Ooh, let me cry.
I love it.
And I had to really honor that, right? I'm not necessarily razzle dazzle. I'm not necessarily this or that, but that's one of my gifts. So one of the things people say about CSLDallas is, I know that no matter what, I can count on you being there. That's because that's my gift, right? Is it going to save the world? I have no idea, but for the people who walk through our doors, it matters. Mm-hmm. So it's our unique, that's what we're here to do, right? And it's liberating to be that, and to have a whole life begin to, express that in a way that's in alignment, as opposed to, well, I think I need to go to do this and I should do that, and somebody wants me to do, be this, or that's why I think Science of Mind is so liberating, because when we're living it, we're living in alignment with the presence of life as us, the unique us that we are. And all of that work, Shakera, that you were talking about is trying to uncover that and just shed the veils and shed the shoulds and shed the boxes and shed that, so that, and we might choose a box, but then we're choosing it as opposed to, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I chose the box of motherhood. I chose that. So I put, and I had to do the whole get on the mommy track for things, and I had to give up things, but I chose that box, not because somebody said, oh, all women have to have, should be wives and mothers. That's their primary function. And so we might definitely take a box, but then it's a box of our choosing.
Yes.
And then it doesn't feel like a trap. It feels like, this is what I'm doing. This is my season to do this.
Yeah.
Right. To be that. And so this idea that we're liberated doesn't mean we're liberated to do just whatever shit we want. It's mean we're liberated to be ourselves.
Yeah.
Right. Which.
Yeah.
What other point is there?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, the greatest gift that I've received is like, I've noticed like before, just like living my life and going like, well, should I have more? Like, should I have bigger savings? Should I have a bigger house? Should we be doing this? Should we? And I was just like, should. My God, just shoulding all over myself. And then I remember like there was a moment after I know what I know, there was a moment when like that little thought came up and I was like, no, I am so happy. I literally went, no, this is more than enough. Enough. Look at my life. Look at the life that I get to live and lead. Look at the people that I get to spend my life with. Look at the people that I share my life with. Like, enough, more than enough. I'm thrilled with my life. And that was like that was the gift. That was when I was free of living other people's expectations, and I could just live what I want, do what I want to do, and live the life that I want. And that was like such a wake up call to me. Like, holy shit, how long did I spend my life not being happy because I was trying to live up to other people's stories?
Right.
My Lord, it's so great to break out of that.
And it's the language that's confusing, because you say, well, I get to then do what I want. And people hear that as selfish. They hear that as, oh, well, you just can do whatever you want. Yeah, you can run amok if you want, right? But what I want is, it's trying to express living in alignment with myself and my soul.
Yeah.
What is the inner motivation? What is the inner impulse, right? And the only way we know how to express that is to say, well, what do I really want? And that's, I think, people so misunderstand that language. And, Emerson was quoted all through the 60s, do your own thing and I shall know you, right? And that became the catchphrase, do your own thing, which is what people now hear as, well, do whatever you want. Well, it's just that do whatever you want philosophy, right? But what they forget to do is quote the next sentence. The next sentence of that statement is, do your own thing and I will know you. Do that which is after your constitution, and everything you do will be right with the world.
Oh.
After your constitution, how you came in to be, right? And so do your own thing isn't just, oh, do whatever you want.
Right.
It's do your thing, do your thing, whatever that is. And it's after the way in which your nature, nurture, all of it together, blah, 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 right? And how that is now, for good or for ill, seeking to express itself, even with the shit we all got from our families and parents. And we got to get rid of some of that stuff. But some of that's also informed us.
Yep.
Not all bad, right? And I love that I love that term, after your constitution.
Yeah.
Right? That's your talents, your innate interests, the way life is showing up as you, plus the things that you got from your family and culture that you value, the things that have shaped you, the things that that you're working on even letting go of, right? All of that is our constitution. And now we're trying to be in alignment with that. That is so not just do your own thing, do whatever you want, right? And that's, I think, part of the challenge is it's so hard to language.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to take the sound bite and twist it.
Yeah.
Right. And yeah, as I said, go, especially let's talk to the women in the room, right? I don't know, Shakera, this may be true for you. I think it's true for a lot of women. Like, we don't know what we want. Because we were told, be good girls. Be good girls, be quiet, don't make up, don't be too loud, don't take up too much room, be a good girl. If you're a good girl, you get all the goodies. Well, you don't learn what you want. What if what you want is to be loud? Not to be loud because you're obnoxious, but to be loud because you have something to say.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. And I'm sure men also have it in a different way, right? Whatever that box is. And yeah, it's just and so I love that sense of liberation. I think metaphysics and the practice of new thought and the science of mind liberates us. I really do.
Are y'all ready for season 2? I can't believe this is the season 1 finale. It feels like we're just getting started with these amazing conversations. So you guys, please don't fret. This is our season finale, but listen up. We can give a little sneak peek now. September, that's the month to look out for. We will be back, roaring back in September. So be ready for that. Be on the lookout for that. Keep subscribing to our YouTube channel. Keep liking. Yo, we see all your comments and we freaking love them. Keep commenting on those videos. We love seeing you. Obviously we see you and we love you and you belong here. You're family with us. So thank you for being a part of that. We're just so excited to come back in September and hang out with you guys again and have even more amazing topics. Thank you for being here with us in season 1. We just love you so much.
Thanks, Oscar. Thanks, Shakera. Super fun.
Yes,
See you